This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description. This video is a continuation of the previous, where I covered one fact for every episode of Thomas in its first 7 seasons, aka the Classic Series. I'll be covering the model seasons produced under Hit Entertainment today, all of seasons 8 through 12. As I did not cover the Pack spin-off series in the previous one, I'll cover that here too. Once again, my goal here is to highlight information that may be a little less commonly known. Now, you diehards watching may already know most of the stuff talked about here. So, like before, try to keep count of how many things were totally new to you, and share that number below in the comments. The official episode orders for the Hit era seasons are a little unclear, so for the sake of this video, I'll be going through everything in production order, aka the order of which they appear on the UK Complete Series DVDs. Also stick around to the end of the video, where I'll provide a big update on what's coming next month. Let's begin. Jack and the Sodor Construction Company. Alfie has kittens. All of the pack-scale Thomas's faces from the 2 pilot episodes in Season 6 were disused following complaints from the crew about them not looking right. I can't say I blame them. All new, much more accurate ones were made during production of this spin-off series. His original sad face, however, does pop up in this one shot.
"What's wrong?" he asked.
Jack owns up. The gantry crane used in the warehouse yard here is a sized-up pack-scale recreation of the gantry crane first seen back in The Flying Kipper. Amazing how many props they recreated in this larger scale, only to ever be used once. On site with Thomas. Many of the original titles of these pack episodes are references to old movies and TV shows. The original title of this episode was Who's the Boss?, in reference to the 1984 sitcom. A visit from Thomas. Despite Thomas's name being in the title, Thomas does not speak at all in this episode, nor is his face ever shown on camera. This episode is about Oliver, and Thomas's role is rather unimportant to the overall plot here, as supported by the episode's original title, Oliversaurus. Mud, Glorious Mud. This episode's title is a reference to the lyrics of the Flanders and Swan song, the Hippopotamus Song.
Mud, mud, glorious mud, nothing quite like it for cooling the blood. So follow me, follow, down to the hollow, and there let us wallow in glorious mud.
Alfie also references the title in another episode.
"Mud! Glorious mud!" Alfie shouted as he spun around.
Thomas and the Moles. Flying Scotsman appears in this episode, in the form of a poster seen on the wall of the Pack's yard. This LNER poster specifically from 1932, which depicts Scotsman at a coaling tower. The Tortoise and the Hare. Several real-life posters appear on the billboards at the racetrack. This one here is of a Renault R8 Gordini. And this one here is a 1933 Wimbledon poster designed by André-Edouard Marty, specifically to be used in the advertising panels on the London Underground. Percy's Scary Tale. This episode, along with Jack Owns Up, were never released on physical home media in widescreen in the US or the UK. The widescreen versions of these episodes only surfaced when they were put up for streaming with the rest of the Pack episodes. They are currently up for digital download on Amazon UK. Kelly's Windy Day. This episode's original title was 5 Easy Pieces, a seemingly unusual title for a story about Kelly losing his confidence. 5 Easy Pieces is a 1970 film about a pianist prodigy, and in this episode, Isabella was delivering a piano before crashing.
"Oh dear, be careful."
Percy helps out. The bridge that Nelson travels under here is actually the viaduct from Thomas and the Magic Railroad reused. It gives you a good idea of how much larger the pack props are than the standard gauge 1 ones. A happy day for Percy. In this shot, you can see something through Kelly's windshield inside his cab here. It appears to be a barcode of some sort. Perhaps the barcode sticker on the motor used to move Kelly's eyes? Not too sure what that is. Thomas's trusty friends. The big spectacle scene of the chimney collapsing could only be done in a single take. As model crew member Chris Lloyds talked about in his interview with SIF, the buildings here were all made of plaster, with the warehouse building rigged with strings attached to the walls. When the chimney fell on it and pushed down onto the strings, they pulled the inside walls in, causing them to collapse inward. He also stated that there was a near miss right before filming. They were about to drop the chimney when one of the camera boys shouted, "Stop! Camera failure!" Just imagine if they had let that chimney go and none of it was captured on film. A tale for Thomas. Some photos exist from this episode showing Thomas pulling Jack and Alfie with a worried expression. This never actually occurs in the episode, and it may be evidence of a scene that was trimmed out. Perhaps the context is Thomas worrying or wondering why the tree is so special, hence why he asks the pack later why it's called the lightning tree. Season 8. Thomas and the firework display. This episode is themed around Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Bonfire Night in the UK. It is never directly stated though, likely so the episode could be localized in other countries with their own fireworks nights, such as 4th of July in the US. There would be other Guy Fawkes Night themed episodes later on in the series though, such as Season 17's Too Many Fire Engines, and Season 22's Samson and the Fireworks. Percy's new whistle. Birdie's eyes move in this episode after he crashes. The prop was not fitted with an iMech at this point, so they are animated digitally. The effect was not all that great in the episode's original release, as seen here.
"Percy!" he cried crossly.
Ugh. It was redone later on, prior to its release on the complete Series 8 DVD. Fish. The pack scale Thomas is used for this medium shot when the fish from his trucks splatter onto him. Note how the slime on him changes between shots. Emily's adventure. There's some clever setup here. This episode establishes that Emily sleeps at Knapford Sheds, separate from everyone else. This is a plot point that would be touched on again in Calling All Engines, when Thomas temporarily moves in with her. She later would leave Knapford Sheds and joins the others at the new Tidmouth Sheds. Thomas saves the day. A deleted scene reveals that Gordon and Henry were meant to appear in this episode. Thomas, looking depressed, presumably is telling them about how he will have to make do around the difficult bend without Annie and Clarabelle. Going by their facial expressions, Henry seems supportive, while Gordon could care less. Squeak, rattle, and roll. This episode features the final appearances of some of Gordon's faces, including this surprised face, this embarrassed face, and this tired, pondering face. The latter does appear in Calling All Engines for a split second here, but this is its final appearance in an episode. Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow. This episode marks the first time that Thomas's yawning face was used since the very first episode. It appears one more time after this, in Chickens to School this same season. I just love that a toy with this weird face exists. Edward the Great. Donald and Douglas appear in a deleted scene, as shown in the World Around You music video. They appear at the foot of Gordon's Hill, cheering Edward on as he makes his ascend. Their dialogue was revealed in the Spencer's Story Library book, which was based on this episode.
But Donald and Douglas were waiting at the junction. They had heard about the race. "Hooray for Edward!" cried Donald. "He's a first-rate engine," added Douglas. This made Edward feel much better.
Spick and span. The Fat Controller and the Inspector's eyes are digitally edited in the shot when they get covered in coal, to keep the white of their eyes visible.
"Sorry," coughed Gordon.
James goes too far. A photo from this episode, this one specifically, is seen framed on the wall of Sir Topham's office in the CGI series. Although, for unknown reasons, James's face has been edited out of it. He has a photo of Emily from Emily's New Route on the wall as well, and, again, her face is edited out. A little creepy, not gonna lie. Thomas gets it right. This is the only episode of the main series written by Robin Rigby. He previously wrote 2 episodes for Jack in the Pack, Treasure Hunt and Safety First, both of which were dropped and never got made. You Can Do It, Toby. In this episode, Toby does it. Thanks, Mads. Donald and Douglas get out of the blue mentions in this one.
And slate cars for Donald. He even shunted fruit and vegetable cars for Douglas.
Not counting their deleted scene from Edward the Great, this is their only acknowledgement of existing in the hit era, until their reappearances in Season 11's Gordon and the Engineer. Percy and the Magic Carpet. This is Steve Asquith's favorite episode that he directed. According to him, the magic carpet was originally going to be a CGI element, but they ended up using a physical carpet filmed on a green screen. He was particularly proud of how well the green screen effect turned out. It is also the favorite episode of writer Abby Grant, an episode that she, quote, had to fight all the way to the top to get made. Hit Entertainment apparently objected to the notion of magic being present in this, but she eventually won them over. Thomas and the Circus. Caroline appears in the row of cars at Marin Station, as can be seen here. Toad also appears in this episode, as the circus train's brake van. Percy's big mistake. The tar that splatters on Gordon here is actually gravy. Don't tell Thomas. String is used in this shot to pull Thomas through the snowdrift without sticking. I always wondered how the prop was able to move through that drift without stopping. Emily's new route. As revealed in the book adaptation, this episode originally opened on a different scene that was totally cut. Emily is bored shunting trucks at Brendam Docks, and Salty tries to cheer her up with one of his stories. He states, "It's about a lighthouse, a box of oranges, and a fishing rod. It all started when..." A shot of Salty from this scene was reused in the music video, Trying. Chickens to School. According to a magazine poster, the sheep farmer that Thomas collects the sheep from here is named Farmer Collette. His figure is made up of using the sea captain's body from Salty's Stormy Tale and the head of a railway board member. Gordon takes charge. As stated on a production list from this season, this episode's working title was Gordon and the Snow Gala. Thomas and the Tuba. The regular smaller Gauge 1 Trevor is used throughout this episode, except for his one close-up here, where the larger pack-scale Trevor is used instead. They likely used this here so Trevor's eyes could be seen moving. Henry and the Wishing Tree. This episode features the only appearance of the Express's buffet coach. Reference photos show the prop more clearly. It features larger windows than the normal coaches, and the word buffet printed on its side in white. Too hot for Thomas. Thomas's truck of cocoa powder exploding was accomplished by fixing a tube under the track and pushing air through it when the truck was above it. During the explosion, if you look closely, you can see the ballast on the track there getting blown upwards from it. James gets a new coat. The 2003 Writer's Bible by Abby Grant features an early story concept that eventually became this episode. In this early version, Percy's role was played by Edward, and it was trucks of slate dust that dirtied James's paint instead of coal. Thomas to the rescue. In most dubs, a music cue plays when Salty announces that the fuel has arrived.
Ahoy there, me hearties! Fresh diesel from the mainland!
In the original US TV airing and on the Greatest Stories DVD, the music cue is inexplicably missing.
Ahoy there, me hearties! Fresh diesel from the mainland!
As good as Gordon. Gordon's front bogey wheels are derailed throughout the entire opening scene of this episode. Once you notice it, you can't unnotice it, and it becomes rather distracting. I just can't stop looking at them. They're derailed. How did they not notice this? Halloween. The original US dub of this episode featured a different ending than all others. In the UK and most other dubs, the episode ends like this.
They knew there was nothing to be scared of. After all, there is no such thing as ghosts. It was all silly make-believe.
In the US dub, the shots used are different, and it never reveals the ghost in the scrapyard.
They knew there was nothing to be scared of. After all, there is no such thing as ghosts. It was all silly make-believe.
This may have been done in an attempt to not confuse younger viewers about ghosts existing. However, this change has been reversed since. When this episode was put out on various US Hit Favorites DVDs, the original ending is present.
They knew there was nothing to be scared of. After all, there is no such thing as ghosts. It was all silly make-believe.
Season 9. Thomas and the Rainbow. From this episode onwards, the entire cast of the Japanese dub changed. This occurred due to Thomas and friends switching to a new broadcasting station in Japan after Season 8, and thus, a new production company was brought in to dub the series. Kamiko Higa, Thomas's new voice actress, has stated that this is her favorite episode, as it was the first one that she voiced Thomas in. Respect for Gordon. Sweet chili sauce was used for the jam that splatters onto Gordon. Man, first gravy, and now chili sauce. What's next for him? Molly's special. Photos reveal that Thomas was meant to meet Molly for the first time at a junction. Gordon passes them at the junction, insulting Molly's unremarkable cargo. Molly races off ashamed, and after that Thomas notices tarpaulins hanging on scaffolding nearby. After that, he would have rushed to find Molly at the flour mill, and suggests the idea of covering her trucks with tarps to fool the others. The scene is present in Molly's story library book.
"What's the matter?" puffed Thomas. "Emily made fun of me because I have to take empty trucks to the coaling plant," replied Molly sadly. Just then, the signal turned to red. Gordon thundered past with the express. "You wait there," he chuffed. "My express is more important than your empty trucks." Molly chugged off very sadly. As Thomas wondered what he could do, the wind blew up over some containers covered in tarpaulin. The tarpaulin began to rustle. "That's it!" puffed Thomas happily. He raced off to find Molly.
This scene is entirely trimmed out of the final episode, and the scene at the flour mill was rewritten to Thomas meeting Molly there for the first time. However, the shot of Thomas noticing the tarps at the junction is still used here, though cleverly they chose to use a rear angle shot to hide the fact that they're not on the flour mill set. The difference is obvious when comparing the two shots side by side. In this wide shot, the Sodor flour mill sign is beside Thomas, and in the tarps shot, instead a signal is next to him. Mighty Mac. The camping grounds flag is actually a maritime flag. Its meaning is Man Overboard. Thomas's milkshake model. The model crew loved using real railway posters as set dressing during the Hit era. In this episode, a LMS poster is seen on the side of Maithwaite Station. It's this one specifically, a 1937 poster titled Scott Passes Scott, illustrated by Brian de Grenou. Percy and the oil painting. When Sir Topham arrives at Knapford to speak to the famous artist, he inexplicably has a dinner napkin tucked into his shirt that's never addressed. A deleted scene revealed that he was having tea when he got the call about the commotion at Knapford and hurried over mid-meal. Thomas and the birthday picnic. Thomas only shows the Hat family 2 potential picnic spots before giving up and heading back home. There was a third one originally that was filmed and cut for time, Bluffs Cove. As revealed in a magazine story, Thomas brought the family here only to find out the beach was closed due to the rain. Shots from this scene were reused in the music video, Every Day is Special on Sodor. Toby feels left out. For unknown reasons, Toby pulls a unique brown and white 4-wheel brake coach at the end of this episode instead of Henrietta. The coach only appears in this episode and never again. Interestingly, Bachmann produced this coach in their 00 and G-Scale Thomas lines, in which they called it Toby's Museum Coach. They also produced a fictional matching composite coach to go with it. Bold and brave. The shot of Harold flying away from Thomas was reused in the music video, One Friendly Family, but as Thomas was sad in that shot, they edited a happy expression onto him and digitally changed his eye positions. This, I'm pretty sure this is what my sleep paralysis demon looks like. Tuneful Toots. The original US dub of this episode, and Duncan and the Old Mine, refer to Rusty as female.
Rusty's favorite journey was by the lake. She liked to toot her horn there, but Rusty was most excited of all. She loved the sound of a brass band.
This change stemmed from the 2003 Writer's Bible by Abby Grant, in which Rusty was referred to as she. Now, I've always thought this was a deliberate attempt to add a girl character to the narrow gauge cast, but looking at the Writer's Bible again, the word she is only used once here, and now I'm genuinely wondering if this was just a typo that was never caught. Regardless, Hit quickly realized the mistake and had Michael Brandon re-narrate all the lines referring to Rusty as female to male prior to the episode's release on home media.
Rusty's favorite journey was by the lake. He liked to toot his horn there, but Rusty was most excited of all. He loved the sounds of a brass band.
Flower Power. 2 versions of the opening scene were filmed. The final episode sees the Fat Controller dressed as a wizard for Halloween. An alternate version was initially filmed depicting him in a devil costume. According to Sean Hedges Quinn, the head sculptor for the series, the devil totem was cut by the American market because it portrayed Satan and was considered inappropriate for a children's TV show. You cannot make this stuff up. Photos of the deleted scene exist, and the devil totem figure is currently in possession of Quinn himself. Rheneas and the Dinosaur. The Stegosaurus skeleton prop from this episode does still exist, and was recently auctioned on the prop store last November to an unknown buyer. Henry and the Flagpole. A giant close-up Salty was constructed in Season 8 for scenes where people had to be shown in his cab. It had a full interior with controls and everything. For this episode, the prop was given a chassis with moving wheels, specifically for the close-up shot of him running over the flagpole.
Oops, sorry, matey, called Salty.
The shot occurs so quickly that it's hard to notice, but the prop does not have a front buffer beam. Thomas and the new engine. Look closely in this shot of Neville racing past McColl Farm. Right before the shot fades to the next, you can just make out Thomas coming into frame in the background. As filmed, the shot was Thomas chasing after Neville to warn him about the bridge, but was trimmed down for time. Emily knows best. Toby damages his front cowcatchers in this episode. Funnily enough, he damaged his rear ones earlier this same season in Toby Feels Left Out. And interestingly, they don't reuse the same damaged cowcatcher prop here. They're totally separate ones. What are the odds that Toby would mangle his cowcatchers twice in the same season? Thomas's new trucks. This is the only time that Harvey is depicted with a claw in an episode. His claw does reappear in a learning segment in Season 10. Kinda wish that they utilized this in the CGI series. I'm chuckling at the idea of Harvey operating his claw in the same way Diesel 10 does Pinchy. The Magic Lamp. The hanging lamp that Peter Sam passes is hung on one of the Dryaw Airfield hangar huts. A large-scale prop of the hut appears in this close-up. Now, this large-scale prop was originally built by Clearwater Features for a 1982 ad for KP Nuts, directed by David Mitton.
KP dry roasted peanuts, because the nut must go on!
The props were later repurposed for Thomas the following year, with the rear open end of the large-scale one consistently being used as the air hangar at Dryaw. This episode is the only one in which the front of the larger scale hut, as seen in the KP Nuts commercial, appears in the show. Thomas and the Toy Shop. This is the only episode that this abnormally narrow tunnel set appears in. The set was built specifically for the learning segment, Which Load for Which Route, in which Edward attempted to take a wide load through the tunnel, and obviously failed. Saving Edward. An alternate take of Edward reversing onto his trucks at Brendam was used in a Sodor Special Places segment on Brendam Docks. I would consider this an outtake, for it features a pretty glaring mistake. Yeah, Cranky is missing. How do you miss him? Gotta wonder how this happened. Thomas tries his best. A deleted scene took place after Thomas attempted to race Gordon. In it, he tries to pawn off his job onto Emily. The scene was cut for time, but nearly the entire thing was reused in a Sodor Special Places segment. Emily raced off with Thomas's chicken cars, scaring the chickens aboard, and Thomas chased after her to tell her to slow down. Duncan and the old mine. Thomas is seen with his green trucks at the transfer yard here. This is some subtle continuity with Thomas's new trucks from earlier this season, in which he gained his own rake of green trucks. Although, to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure if this was intentional or not. Thomas's day off. Dennis is introduced in this episode, and he is depicted as quite a lazy character that doesn't like to pull trains, or really do any type of work. Dennis was based on the experimental number 11001, first built in 1949. His lazy work ethic with pulling trains may have been inspired by 11001's own shortcomings. The locomotive was designed to shunt and haul short-distance trains. However, it was only fitted with air brakes, and it was not well suited to braking trains. 11001 was unconventional, and after a gearbox failure in 1958, was scrapped not long after that, only serving about 10 years. Keeping up with James. Percy's snowplow here is Ducks, from Season 6's Toby Had a Little Lamb. Thomas and the statue. Several copies of the Steam Team statue were produced at the end of Season 9's production as thank you gifts to the crew members. Some have been sold online, including one that was recently sold on the prop store last November. Skarloey the Brave. This episode is the only one that shows the narrow gauge engines can access the top of the incline via a track that goes up the mountain. This sort of begs the question what exactly the point of the incline is at all, if the trains can easily access the top point. Whatever, this episode is one of the worst ever. Who really cares? Thomas and the Golden Eagle. The birds seen on the power lines in the opening of this episode are a reference to the Pixar short For the Birds, featuring a giant bird in the middle, holding down the power line. The birds are purposely not shown from the front, and as this photo of them shows, it's pretty clear why. They are quite cartoony in their appearance. I personally like this guy the best. Season 10. Thomas and the Jet Plane. Jeremy the Jet is introduced in this episode, and he went through several design iterations. One of his earliest designs featured his nose as an actual giant nose. Just look at that schnoz. Writer Abby Grant stated that this episode was one of the hardest to write because it was difficult to come up with ways to make Thomas and a plane interact. But as Jeremy's prop was already built, she had to think of something. After learning this, it should be no shock that Jeremy never spoke again after this episode. There's just no easy way for a train and a plane to have a conversation. A smooth ride. Sir Handel makes his big return to the series in this episode after a 5-season absence. He gained a new larger-scale model here, complete with new faces designed by Sean Hedges Quinn. As he states, Sir Handel was his least favorite of all the trains, because he just had a bit of a meh face. A little plain. Follow That Flower. This episode primarily features the Gauge 3 narrow gauge scale Thomas and James. Some Gauge 3 trucks with faces appear in this, but because they are so much larger than the standard Gauge 1 trucks, they use van faces. Very clever reuse of assets here. Percy and the Fun Fair. The scenes of Percy meeting up with Toby and Edward were all reshot. The original versions featured Toby and Edward with standard trucks with gray tarps. The scenes were reshot with their wagons now becoming multicolored, with colorful tarps covering them, likely to make their trains appear more fun and special in comparison to Percy's boring coal trucks. A few photos exist of the original scenes. Duncan drops a clanger. Alright, I really struggled with this one. I could not for the life of me think of anything interesting to say about this episode. I have found that the most notable thing about it is that it's the only episode this season that Thomas does not appear in. So, that's something, I guess. Toby's afternoon off. Toby asks Salty for help at one point, and Salty declines and leaves. In the following shot after he rolls away, you can just make out him stopping at the edge of the set before the shot cuts. This is only really visible in the 16:9 widescreen version. Thomas's Tricky Tree. Like Follow That Flower, this episode primarily takes place at the wharf and features the Gauge 3 narrow gauge scale Thomas. only so many Gauge 3 wharf sets were built, so specifically for this one shot of Thomas being diverted onto a siding, a Gauge 1 wharf set was built. The main giveaway that this set is Gauge 1 is the faceless horrid lorries in the top right. It's good to be Gordon. There is an amazing outtake from this episode that I'm sure you all have seen. The mechanism used to make Henry plume black smoke malfunctioned and exploded inside his tender.
But then it was time for Gordon to leave. Hooray for Gordon! Wheezed Henry.
R.I.P. Henry's fireman. Emily and the Special Coaches. Gordon's special blue coaches were actually constructed all the way back during the production of Season 7 to be used as Spencer's coaches. They were dropped before filming, opting to use the pair of maroon special coaches for him instead. The blue coaches went unused until this season, when this episode was written around them being presented to Gordon here for breaking his speed record. And we never see them again after this. I did try to cross-reference this fact, but I could not find the original source of it. The wiki was no help, so take this one with a grain of salt. If you do know the source of this fact, please comment it below. Topped off Thomas. A lot of face trivia in this episode specifically. This mad face that Thomas wears here only appears in this episode. It was a mad face sculpted for him all the way back in Season 2 that went unused. Spencer's clenched face is used for the first and only time here, of which was sculpted back in Season 7. And this episode also marks the final appearance of Thomas's rather memorable, tired expression, sculpted back in Season 1. Fearless Freddy. Freddy is introduced in this episode. He is based on Russell, a 262 narrow gauge locomotive that currently resides on the Welsh Highland Heritage Railway in Porthmadog, Wales. The Skarloey engines are all notoriously based on the engines of the Tallyclyn Railway, and Russell has a connection with it. In 1953, Russell suffered severe damage to one of its axles, which led to its withdrawal from service. It was preserved by the Birmingham Locomotive Society, who then moved it to the newly preserved Tallyclyn Railway, where it was left on static display at Wharf Station while work was done. There, Russell remained for about 10 years or so, until being donated to the Welsh Highland Railway in 1965. Sticky Toffee Thomas. Some props from past episodes appear on the picnic table at the costume contest, including the first place ribbon from Season 8's Spick and Span, and a Topham medal from Season 7's 3 Cheers for Thomas. Random aside here, but I just think it's so funny that Topham put his own face on a medal to be given at a sports day event. Like, congrats kid, here's a medal with my face on it. Thanks, I guess? Big Strong Henry. The leaked script for this episode features some small differences from what was filmed. One of my favorite bits is here. Gordon scoffs, "Big Strong Henry? Huh, I'll believe it when I see it." And in response, Thomas says, "You will see it." And then he chuffs off and blows smoke in Gordon's face. Gordon wheezes in response. Great use of cheeky Thomas there. In the final episode, Gordon makes his remarks, and then he leaves the shed before anyone else. Not as fun. Seeing the sights. Salty has dialogue in the leaked script for this episode. As Thomas arrives at the docks, he shouts, "Ahoy there, me hearty! Your passengers are waiting for ye!" as they pass each other. His dialogue is omitted in the final episode, and the two simply pass each other in silence. Thomas and the Shooting Star. Thomas makes some indirect references to past episodes when thinking about what to wish for. He says,
"Never to have to work with Diesel again,"
which refers to Season 9's Flower Power and Season 8's Thomas to the Rescue.
"Or never wearing my snowplow,"
which refers to Season 1's Thomas, Terrence, and the Snow, Season 6's It's Only Snow, and Season 8's Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow.
"Or never having to pull smelly fish,"
which refers to Season 8's Fish. Which way now? Smaller Gauge 1 figures are used in the foreground of this shot to imply distance and make the bridge seem taller. It does inadvertently make Rusty look ginormous compared to them though. Toby's new shed. When watched in production order, this is the first appearance of Arlesdale End Station since Season 1. Toby's lone shed has been seen many times since Season 5, but this is the first time it is seen on the new Arlesdale End set. This remains consistent following this episode, even into the CGI series. Edward strikes out. In the original script, Edward's load was telegraph poles, all of which topple out of the trucks when he stops at a red signal. For whatever reason, this was changed to pipes in the final episode. Thomas's frosty friend. The giant pack scale Thomas is used for the shot of the balloon's ropes attaching themselves to his rear buffers. Wharf and Peace. An entirely new body shell of Skarloey with a dented saddle tank was built for this episode, for the scene when logs ram into him and damage him. Thomas and the Colors. James gets decorated with football flags in this episode. Wooden Railway produced this variant of James in their 2007 Adventures of James pack called James with Team Colors. Unfortunately, this was one of the products that was recalled that same year during the whole lead paint fiasco, a recall that saw most Wooden Railway toys with red paint produced between 2005 and then to have lead in the paint. So if you own this version of James, you probably shouldn't lick it. Missing Trucks. This episode was retitled Missing Cars for the US dub. When put on home media, it was inexplicably changed to Missing Freight Cars. Despite this, Michael Brandon still reads the title as Missing Cars.
Missing Cars.
What was the point of this change exactly? Thomas and the Birthday Mail. The theme used for Rosie here is actually a repurposed theme that first appeared back in Calling All Engines.
Next, Thomas and Percy had to go to the smelter's yard. Rosie was a cheerful, chirpy little tank engine. She was always pleased to meet Thomas.
This one-off theme ended up becoming Rosie's main theme and is reused for her in all of her following major appearances. Duncan's Bluff. An outtake of this shot exists. As seen in the Season 10 blooper reel, James's eyes were positioned incorrectly, so his pupils fell below his cheeks, resulting in completely all-white eyes. It's okay, I didn't need to sleep tonight anyway. Thomas and the Treasure. The leaked script of this episode again reveals some differences from the final episode. In the script, it says Thomas circles Black Lock while looking for the third clue. As he circles, he hears helicopter rotor blades above him. Harold is following him and eventually lands to speak to him. In the final episode, this scene was cut, and it simply fades to Harold landing near him. The Black Lock scene was filmed though, and a shot of Harold following Thomas around the lock was reused in the music video, H is for Harold. The Green Controller. In this episode, Lady Hack gives Percy orders while Topham is ill. She pulls out a piece of paper with instructions. The paper she holds appears to be clipped from a production note sheet. The words Thomas and Friends can be made out at the top, with Friends cut off after the R. The word crew can be made out here, and the rest is illegible. James the Second Best. One may wonder how exactly James's face was able to crash through the billboard, but his buffer beam didn't. We know the actual reason is because it would spoil the funny visual of only James's face poking through the billboard. But how did they accomplish this? For the front shots, James's body was removed from his chassis and propped up behind the billboard on blocks. For the rear shots though, his whole body with his chassis is present, and you can clearly see his buffer beam crash through the billboard in these. Thomas and Skarloey's Big Day Out. This is probably one of the most innovative episodes of the show from a production standpoint. This episode seamlessly cuts between the Gauge 1 Thomas and Skarloey on Gauge 1 sets and the larger Gauge 3 props on Gauge 3 sets. For all wide shots on the Gauge 1 sets, Skarloey's smaller O-scale Season 4 prop is used, and whenever a close-up of Skarloey is required, they cut to the larger Gauge 3 prop. The set that Skarloey crashes on was built twice, once in Gauge 1 for the crash itself, and again in Gauge 3 for the conversation after that he and Thomas have. Brilliant stuff. Season 11. Hide and Peep. This is the first episode shot in 1080p high definition. The intro sequence, the Welcome to the Island of Sodor sequence, the end credits, and the engine roll call were all reshot in their entirety to match the episodes. Gordon and the Engineer. Photos from this episode suggest the scene of Gordon passing Henry was filmed twice. The original version took place on this set that looks like an approach to Maron. In the final episode, it occurs on this different mainline set on a curve. Thomas sets sail. The sailboat prop built for this episode was recreated in CGI by Nitrogen Studios. It does not appear in any episodes as far as I know, but it does appear out at sea in the Welcome to Sodor intro sequence. Emily's Rubbish. Salty was meant to appear in this episode, but was cut for unknown reasons. He was present at the shunting yards when Emily first met Whiff, as these photos show. Poor Salty, man, he was cut from so many of these hit-era episodes. Dream On. Thomas wears the Duke and Duchess of Boxford's coat of arms in this episode. The coat of arms is made up of a white shield with a blue band, a fleur-de-lis in the top right, and what appears to be a crown on the bottom left. I am not at all an expert in what colors and symbols on coat of arms represent. Would love for someone to decode this. Cool Truckings. Duncan spends most of this episode on Madge's flatbed. For this, a lightweight, all-resin replica of Duncan was built to accomplish some of the stunt sequences. The main giveaway between the regular Duncan and the resin Duncan are the side rods. The resin ones are a lot duller and don't have that same shine to them. The resin Duncan is currently in possession of prop archivist's Thomas Tank merch. Thomas and the Spaceship. There's a notable difference between dubs in Percy's dialogue when he first meets Thomas. In the UK, he says,
"Hello, Thomas," Percy peeped. "Thank you for coming to help me."
In the US dub, he only says,
"Hello," he peeped happily.
And then awkward silence. The audio sounds chopped to me, like Brandon said the whole line, but then they cut it after he said hello. I can only speculate that Brandon may have said the line too long, and it didn't fit the shot before it cut to the next, so they shortened it. Hector the Horrid. As is the case with a few other episodes this season, several shots of this episode were reshot for unknown reasons. The most notable is Hector's crash. In the original version that aired on TV, Hector hits the buffers, and then he falls over. In the reshot version, he bounces upwards after colliding, and then tumbles over. The original version aired on TV back in 2007, and the reshot versions are all present on most home media. I don't know the concrete reason why certain scenes were reshot this season. I think the original version of the crash looked better, to be honest. Thomas and the Storyteller. In this shot of the storyteller reading to kids at school, she is actually holding a script to an episode. Its format matches the leaked Season 10 scripts, with stage directions on the left and narration on the right. Unfortunately, it's hard to make out what episode's script is used here. Likely, it's the script for this episode. Skarloey storms through. The farmer that calls out to Skarloey uses an unrepainted figurehead all the way back from Season 4. The giveaway here is the eyes. It's the head of this driver figure specifically. Thomas and the Lighthouse. The lighthouse keeper here is Cyril the Fogman from Season 6's The Fogman. I guess he upgraded professions between seasons. Sir Handel in charge. The main theme used all the way back in Season 7's Bill, Ben, and Fergus was repurposed here as Sir Handel's theme.
Fergus is a small railway traction engine who works on the island of Sodor.
Sir Handel in charge. Sir Handel is one of the oldest engines in the hills of Sodor.
Smoke and Mirrors. Elizabeth appears briefly in this episode and seems to wear an unused, grinning, cheeky face. Now, she has actually worn it once in the past. She is wearing it in this shot from Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry in Season 6, though is so far away from the camera that it's hard to make out. Henry's Lucky Day. Henry's original Perspex prop from Season 1 is paired with the tender of his new brass prop from Season 10 in this episode. The color differences between the two are quite noticeable. The new brass Henry is a much brighter green. Don't Be Silly, Billy. This episode, as well as Thomas and the Stinky Cheese, was to be recreated fully in CGI by Stardust Pictures to test the potential of the series in the new medium. Storyboards by Dino at Tennessee were drawn up and exist online on his website, but no actual footage of the CGI tests from this episode have surfaced, if they even exist. Toby's Triumph. When the workmen clean Toby, they whistle while they work.
Soon the workmen were whistling.
The tune they whistle is Toby's theme. Now if I had to take a guess, the man whistling here is probably the show's composer, Robert Hartshorn, who created the theme. Thomas and the Runaway Car. Sir Topham gets a new car in this episode. Now for anyone keeping track, this is his 5th car in the TV series. The first appeared only in Season 1 and looked like this, with the headlights on top of the fenders. From Seasons 2 to 4, he had a different car, which looked like this. In Season 3, he is shown to have a black car in some episodes. In Season 5, he gained his more recognizable car, which loosely resembles a Rover P4. And in this episode, he replaces that car with this one, which is virtually identical to the previous. Edward and the Mail. A photo from this episode shows an alternate take of one of the opening shots. Instead of Edward banking James up Gordon's Hill, they are instead double-heading the train, with Edward at the front. Getting some nice James and the Coaches vibes from this. Thomas and the Big Bang. This episode features the 3rd time that James has spun out of control on a turntable. The first time occurred in Season 1's Tenders and Turntables, the second in Season 3's Buzz Buzz, and now here. James and turntables don't mix very well, do they? Wash behind your buffers. Madge's shocked face has a pink tongue painted on it. For some unknown reason, it was digitally painted out in this shot.
Oh no, cried Madge.
The tongue does appear in the original version of this episode, as released on the US Engines and Escapades DVD.
Oh no, cried Madge. Now you're both dirtier than ever.
What was the point of removing this exactly? Thomas in trouble. The shot of Salty shunting at Brendam is, for some reason, mirrored. Cranky and Big Mickey are in different positions as a result. Here is what it should look like. Dirty Work. This episode features several reshoots. For the reshoots, Callan Castle and Knapford Station shared the same set to speed up production. In this shot of James leaving the castle, you can clearly see Knapford Station's shadow on the ground, of which is not present in this shot, which is from the original shoot. Duncan does it all. This episode features the first and only ever appearance of Annie and Clarabelle's larger Gauge 3 props. We never really get a good look at them here, but we did get to see them in full in 2021 when they were put on display with Thomas at the Clearwater event at the Midland Railway Center. Percy and the Left Luggage. This episode features the only known use of Jeremy's close-up prop, which appears in this shot behind Dowager Hat. I don't think we've ever seen photos of it in full, but likely only this small portion of his entry doors was built. Ding-a-ling. My other sleep paralysis demon, Cuffy the Clown, appears in this episode. His prop was first built all the way back for Season 8's Thomas and the Circus, and would later be used as reference when Nitrogen Studios created Mr. Bubbles in CGI. To think that this random clown figure would go on to be a semi-recurring character in the CGI series. Thomas and the Stinky Cheese. The same shot is used twice here in the same sequence. When Thomas makes his way to the docks, this shot is shown.
Must get to the docks, must get to the docks, he chuffed.
Then he passes James, and
even though his friends could smell the stinky cheese,
it's used again, and so soon after. They must have not shot enough footage of a cheese-covered Thomas with the flatbed, and got a little desperate in the editing room. Season 12. Thomas and the Billboard. This was the first episode produced in a model CGI hybrid style. All the episodes are still filmed on model sets, and CGI was brought in later to animate the characters' faces and all the people. The photographer is an all CGI character introduced in this episode. However, he does get represented by a physical Gauge 1 scale figure in this shot. Steady Eddie. Edward is referred to by the nickname Eddie for the first time in this episode. And interestingly, it's a nickname that sticks for a while moving forward. In Season 14, Charlie calls Edward Eddie.
I'm ready, Eddie!
And continues to do so in following appearances. Rosie's Fun Fair Special. Children's television writer Andrew Viner wrote this episode. He stated once in a letter in 2008 that he was a fan of the Railway Series books as a child, and that Stepney the Bluebell engine was his favorite. While purely speculative, it's possible that's why Stepney makes a totally random, out-of-the-blue appearance here, as he was Viner's favorite. Mountain Marvel. Proteus is relevant in this episode, who previously appeared via a story back in Season 9's The Magic Lamp. A statue of him is discovered here by Peter Sam. The big myth surrounding Proteus is regarding his magic lamp and its ability to grant wishes. And hilariously, his statue here inexplicably omits it. Henry gets it wrong. Brendam Docks' manager is represented here by Mr. Percival, who purposely is faced away from the camera. And they thought we wouldn't notice. Heave Ho Thomas. Hank is introduced in this episode.
Howdy, Thomas. Now you look like one of the finest little engines I've ever seen.
He is based on a Pennsylvania Railroad K4 class locomotive. Early concept sketches by senior modeler Philip Reeves revealed that he originally was going to be an articulated Challenger class. This was likely too large an engine for the prop crew, and he was changed soon after. Model designer John Lee also revealed in an interview with SIF that Hank was originally going to have a much older looking face with a handlebar mustache, and was changed later to have a younger, jollier face at Hit's request. Funnily enough, an articulated engine does appear later in the series in the form of Sam, as does an engine with an old face and a handlebar mustache in the form of Bo.
Breakdown crane! Breakdown crane!
They really were ahead of their time with Hank, weren't they? Toby's Special Surprise. I believe this episode features the only appearance of the close-up props of Toby's cab interior, specifically his back head. The full boiler was built prior to Season 8, and the prop builders really did their research with it. It resembles the boiler of a real J70 tram locomotive. I guess you could say, props to them! Boo. Okay, that was bad.
You suck.
Excellent Emily. Bulgy makes a quick cameo in this episode, in his red bus form. In Season 7's Bulgy Rides Again, he was converted into a mobile vegetable stand, and was painted dark green. And he made a cameo or two in this form after that. Him being red again here would appear to be a continuity mistake, but apparently not. As revealed in Season 21, he actually did return to his red bus form at some point off-screen.
Then I was a mobile vegetable stand, and now I'm back in service.
If we want to get really technical and count his cameo here as canon, he would have returned into his red bus form sometime between the 10th and 12th seasons. The Party Surprise. Michael Brandon changes his voice for Freddy mid-scene. For most of the episode, he gives Freddy a deep kind of dumb guy voice.
It was a surprise for Colin, sir. Colin has never been to a party.
And then mid-scene, it changes to...
Oh, yes, sir. If I work quickly, I can still put everything right.
Not sure what happened here. Saved You. Harvey appears in this episode, though he is never depicted with a CGI face. One was made for him though, as evident in some promotional photos for this episode. The face would not be used on screen until Harvey made his full CGI debut in Season 17's Thomas's Shortcut. Duncan and the Hot Air Balloon. Mr. Percival's twins play a role in this episode. The twins' names are never stated here, but they do have names as revealed in their concept art. Patrick and Pansy Percival. James works it out. Harold is depicted in full CGI in this episode. A frame of him from this episode, specifically this one, was used on the official poster for Misty Island Rescue. I'll be covering this atrocity soon. Don't you worry. Tram Trouble. One of the buildings in Great Waterton seen on the right here is a pub called the Asquith Arms. Its sign features a photo of series director Steve Asquith wearing a jester hat, hence the pub's name, the Asquith Arms. Don't go back. From this episode onwards, Farquhar Quarry for some reason is retconned into the Sodor Slate Quarry, complete with a sign hung on the shed over the quarry's entrance. This retcon is kept throughout the nitrogen seasons, until the season 16 episode, Whiff's Wish, where it was retconned back into the Farquhar Quarry.
Toby and Mavis work at Farquhar Quarry.
And it has remained as this since. I don't think a soul out there liked it being called the Sodor Slate Quarry to begin with. Gordon takes a shortcut. This season was originally meant to be narrated by Pierce Brosnan, who had narrated the special The Great Discovery right before this season. He ultimately left the show, but he did narrate all of season 12 before he left, and all of the characters' mouth movements were animated to his voice. Following his departure, Michael Angelis and Michael Brandon were brought back to re-narrate the season for the UK and US respectively, syncing their narration to the pre-existing animation. Pierce's dub is currently lost media and has never been made publicly available, but a clip of his narration from this episode was posted onto Dino at Tennesseu's website.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late. I took a shortcut, but I got lost. Huh, I never get lost. I know the railway better than any other engine.
The Man in the Hills. The Man in the Hills is based on a real-life location in the UK, the Long Man of Wilmington, which depicts the outline of a man holding two sticks cut into Windover Hill near East Sussex. Its origin is unclear, though the first known recordings of it date back to the early 18th century. Thomas puts the brakes on. This opening shot of Thomas passing the camera light engine is actually a shot that was previously used in Thomas and the Billboard. However, Thomas's face is animated differently in each. It's kinda neat seeing the same exact shot with different animation on it. Percy and the Bandstand. As revealed in storyboards by Dino at Tennessee, the original title for this episode was Percy and the Bandstand Surprise. Push Me, Pull You. Animating the engine's faces this season was accomplished by filming the props with face targets, in place of where their faces were. These allowed the animators to properly motion track the CGI faces onto the props in post-production. Every now and then, the face targets are visible in the final footage. In this shot of Skarloey leaving Duncan, you can just make out Duncan's exposed white face target through the gaps in Skarloey's cargo. Best Friends. Some weird mumbling was left in after Michael Brandon says this line.
And don't forget to have a wash down, thank you.
For comparison, the UK dub sounds like this.
And don't forget to have a wash down.
And don't forget to have a wash down, thank you. To have a wash down, thank you.
You really shouldn't mumble, because I can't understand a word you're saying.
And don't forget to have a wash down, thank you.
Seriously, what on earth did he say? Thank you?
And don't forget to have a wash down, thank you. To have a wash down, thank you. To have a wash down, thank you.
Mumbler!
This pick of the week has nothing really to do with the hit era, but it's a good video that I think deserves more attention. It's Why Sodor Feels So Real by the Thomas Cynic. This is an excellent video essay, putting into words why the world of the Railway series feels so real. Stories within the stories told by characters make the characters feel human, while simultaneously adding history and folklore into this fictional world. He puts it into much better words than I could have, so go check the video out. It's definitely worth a watch, with the Railway series' 80th anniversary coming up. And I'll use that as a segue into what I'd like to talk about next. We are less than a month away from the big 80th anniversary on May 12th. I haven't been posting here as regularly, and that is because I am working hard on a big video that will be posted on that day. Many of you can probably guess what it is, and if you're on my Patreon, you know what it is, but I won't spoil the surprise regardless. And maybe you shouldn't either in the comments. If you'd like to know what it is and get consistent updates and progress, consider joining my Patreon. It's gonna be big. May is going to be a crazy month because I also have another video planned that'll hopefully be out towards the end of May. And it is the Misty Island Torture Fest. I mean the Season 14 retrospective. Yep, it's finally happening. I've rewatched Misty Island more times than I'd like to admit, and working my way through the season. I have my notes, and once the 80th video is done, I'll jump into that video. The channel is going to pop off next month. I hope you all are ready for it. And that's all from me, folks. Lots of fun stuff to come. Big thanks once again to all my patrons for the continued support. And I will see you all on May 12th. Bye-bye.